Good morning. Welcome again to Morning Devotions, and thank you again so much for our time together. It's a beautiful thing to just read through the entire Bible, and that way you don't miss some of those verses that help keep everything in proper perspective. It amazes me today when people walk up to me and they say, "Pastor Summer, you don't act like a pastor." I said, "Well, what is a pastor supposed to act like?" And they said, "Well, and they really don't have any idea, but they think I'm not acting like it." Now, brothers and sisters, at some point or another, you and I have to realize that men of God act like how the Bible teaches us to act, and women of God act like how the Bible teaches us to act, not how culture tells us that a spiritual person should act, because we're pastors, we're men and women of God, we follow God. Now, the Apostle Paul, he was a very interesting man of God. Sometimes we think that men and women of God walk around in this little cloud of spirituality that's never interrupted, and they never get upset, and they never get, listen to Paul. Philippians chapter 3, beginning with verse 1. "Finally, my brothers, rejoice in the Lord. It is no trouble for me to write the same things to you again. It's a safeguard to you. Watch out for those dogs, those men who do evil, those mutilators of the flesh. For it is we who are the circumcision, we who worship by the Spirit of God, who glory in Christ Jesus, and put no confidence in the flesh, though I myself have reasons for such confidence." Paul spent a lifetime in a battle with a certain type of preacher. Now, these men actually consider themselves to be Christians. These men actually consider themselves to be followers of Christ. These men were the ones that started the war in Antioch of Assyria and had the whole Jerusalem council about them in Acts 15, where salvation by grace was laid down as a doctrine of the church. These were men that tore up the churches wherever Paul went. As soon as Paul would leave, they would come in behind Paul and say, "Now, Paul taught you salvation by grace, but we want to teach you that you need to be circumcised and you need to obey the law of Moses, then you can be saved." And Paul lived in a battle for this. It's not that he hated these men. It's he hated what these men did to people, how they confused the people, and how they confused the doctrine of salvation. We are saved by grace. Now, sometimes as pastors, you're going to have to understand, we're going to stand up and say some things that are very strong. And we're going to stand up and say some things that are against other people. Not that we're against those people, but brothers and sisters, at some point we have to stand up and fight the good fight of faith for the gospel of salvation by grace. That people come into an encounter with God and they're really saved from their sins. They don't just do some little religious circumcision on the outside, but not changed on the inside. Salvation by grace is all about the grace of God flowing within us and changing us from the inside out, where we're not the people that we used to be. I would challenge pastors, and there are thousands of you who listen to me every morning on this all over the world, and sometimes it surprises me when you walk up and talk to me in airports and in conferences and things. I would challenge you. Don't go preach against people, but stand up and get a little bit of holy, righteous anger on your insides. Salvation by grace through faith in Jesus Christ. We believe in people coming by grace and into an encounter with God, and God changes them by grace from the inside out. It's not about joining a church. It's not about becoming part of a social club. It's not about any of that. It's about change on the inside by the grace of God.